Good morning, Intenders.
Good morning.
Welcome and welcome back to Morning Intentions. Today is Thursday, March 19th. Thank you for being here for this month of codependency and our book study, not our book summary of Too Much by Terry
No,
Cole.
this is a study, that's for sure.
We are studying, we're learning, we're integrating, we're growing. What could be better than doing some personal development?
And moving past some of these coping strategies that have informed our lives.
And sometimes it's just that awareness that a coping strategy is informing our life that is the impetus to change. Sometimes we're just not aware of what we're doing. We're just going through life on autopilot and da 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 da, da and we're just going, we're just clacking along. And then all of a sudden,
You're
oh my
making
gosh.
this sound so fun, Ada.
Well, it is fun when we get these insights that are like, oh my goodness, I never thought of it like that. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just living.
I
And
was just
here-
going through life surviving.
Yeah, and here's what I've been doing this whole time. Oh my goodness. Well, I don't want to be doing that anymore. But now that I have that knowledge, now that I have that awareness, I can do something about it.
That's where I wanted to start today. You brought up fight, flight, freeze. What did you call it? Flop?
Flop.
Flop.
I think of your little dog, Molly. And
She-
also, I think of my dog, Marcus. Marcus, especially, when he does not want to do something like go in his kennel that he shares with Molly for the workday. Oh my goodness. When he doesn't want to do that, he just flops right over.
He flops right over and he's not moving.
No, he does not want to move. And he looks me in the eye and he's like, no, I don't want to do this. So there's flop. And then there's also fawn.
And you talked about fawn, but I would like to look at that a little closer. And I also want to make sure we all understand what a trauma response, when we say trauma response, what that means. So when we're thinking about fawning, Terry Cole, if you're following along on page 66, she's actually quoting somebody else, Pete Walker, who introduced fawning. Fawn types seek safety by merging with wishes, needs, and demands of others. They act as if they believe that the price of admission to any relationship is the forfeiture of all their needs, rights, preferences, and boundaries. I want us to keep that in mind, and then I want to also clarify trauma response, because we might think that we know when we're having a trauma response, but we actually may not know we're having a trauma response. So she goes on, same page. As with the other trauma responses, fight, flight, freeze, we can default to fawning when we feel afraid of our emotional and physical safety and well-being, sending our nervous system into dysregulated freefall and prompting a cascade of high adrenaline and other stress hormones to surge throughout our bodies. So we're doing this and we have a response in our body. I wanted to bring this up because if we have lived as a high-functioning codependent, we may not even be aware of a trauma response. So here she explains it then, going on. The important thing to understand is that our trauma responses can be triggered unconsciously. So please remember, like we've been talking about when I said high-functioning codependency is a trauma response, most of the time we're not aware of this.
Can I ask you something as our resident high-functioning codependent?
Yes.
So when I was listening to what you're saying, and the thought popped into my head, and the question came up. So when I think of trigger, I think of there's an event happened, and then there is this unconscious nervous system reaction of fear, underlying fear, and then, oh, I need to do something about it, or I'm going to run away, I'm going to fight, flight, freeze, flop, or fawn. And I'm wondering, as a high-functioning codependent, especially since that is based on trauma, is Is it like a lifelong trigger? Like you're constantly triggered? Are you triggered before anything happens? Do particular events come up? Or do you live your life in this state of nervous system activation that you can't really turn off?
Door number 2. That's why this then becomes the way you show up. One of the days this week, the way you articulated it to me was really, really helpful. And you were talking about how if you're a high functioning codependent, you're probably going to show up as a high functioning codependent no matter where you are. And then I made the comment, well, but then I'm not with you. And that's only because you say, hey, stop right here. You're not going to do that.
I'm super safe.
But also, you don't allow it to happen. The point here is the second part of this sentence that I was just reading. When you're a high functioning codependent, you first started showing up like this because it's not that someone was threatening your life, although it could be, but most of the time it's not that. But you felt that your life was threatened. You felt that you weren't safe. So that you started acting in this way, but you had to do that over and over and over again, that it becomes very traumatic. You start acting like that and it just becomes a way of being because that's how it feels inside. If I don't meet your needs, if I don't help you, will I be able to survive? That might sound hyperbolic, but it's not. Now, she also makes a point in the book of stressing, and this is where I think, gosh, if we weren't talking about this book, I think it would be really hard to understand. I mean, I love Terry Cole, but it would be really hard to understand because she talks about high functioning codependency as something that's also modeled for us. Now, codependency.
See, that mixed me up, so I'm glad you're bringing this up.
Right. Well, codependency can be modeled, and then we can just get into this codependent way of, okay, I guess this is how relationships are. So codependency can be modeled. But in my experience, and I do not think I'm wrong, high functioning codependence is a trigger response. It goes way beyond something that was modeled. There's this life-threatening element to it that if I don't show up in a certain way, I am not safe. And that's where the trauma comes, because if you live in that state, it then becomes that little t trauma, which Gabor Mate and other trauma experts that I have learned from, that little t trauma is where we get complex PTSD, because we're always on guard, always on guard, always on guard. And then if I'm on guard at home all the time, let's say for an example, and then I go to school, my body, my nervous system doesn't say, oh, now you're at school, you're safe. No, you're on guard there too. And that's why you show up as this high functioning codependent in most all of your relationships. Now, Ada taught me from a very early age that I'm not to show up like that with her. And I learned. But that was a unique situation, I believe, because I was just sharing the other day how I could get to be a high functioning codependent with Dawn so easily. I have to be extremely intentional.
So this makes me think of Terry Cole's trip to the salon in New York City, where she's sitting in the chair where they wash your hair and do all that kind of stuff. And she's getting stressed out because she's been sitting there for a long time and it feels like the line's backing up. So in terms of safety, it could be her nervous system, unconscious as it may be, could be worried another customer is going to flip out and make a scene because things are taking too long.
Right. I mean,
it's more than just, oh, I know how to run the salon better than you.
No, right, exactly.
That has nothing to do with that, actually. I've been sitting here a long time. People are not getting helped. This isn't a safe situation because at some point, someone's going to flip out and start screaming and throwing a tantrum because they haven't been served in a timely manner. And then, oh my God, what could happen then?
But she doesn't know at that moment when she's sitting there, she doesn't know that all of that's going on inside of her. she now can look back and say, oh, what did I put myself through? Just like in this chapter 3, we're talking about Ada here, and it's no relationship to Ada over here. Our Ada. Terry Cole's Ada, she got herself into relationships that were codependent with partners, romantic partners. But then if you looked at her whole life, if you looked at Ada's life, she was extremely codependent with her family members. So it starts, and it's not just some little thing. It's Ada didn't feel safe in childhood, so that she learned how to do the fawning, which is typically what, that high functioning codependency is. We're not fighting. We're not going into flight. We're not freezing. We're trying to please you. And then she gets stuck, because then that's how Ada then was showing up, even in her romantic relationships that really took a bad turn. But then she could also then, with Terry Cole's help, she could see that she was actually being high functioning codependent in all of her relationships.
So our intention for today is I will bring awareness to how I'm showing up in my relationships. I will bring awareness to how I'm showing up in my relationships. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our day is better because you are part of our day. See you tomorrow.
See you then.